Irashaimase, and welcome to Tinker Tailor Solder Fry here on the mighty Loading Ready Run Video Entertainment Network. My name's Ian Horner, and I will be your navigator tonight through the build process, as it is, because it's hobby night once again, and you know what that means? Some form of model, plastic, wooden, or otherwise. This week, plastic. Are we having some issues with the microphone, Paul?
I don't think so.
Then great. Then we'll continue on. Just a reminder that we got Paul on the ones and twos out in the booth. And of course, I want to also remind you that everything we do here at the channel is brought to you by you via your kind patronage over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. We super appreciate how easy it is for them to reach into your pocket every month and help us out. We also want to thank all of those of you who contribute either with twitch.tv through your bits and subs, youtube.com through the panoply of ways that YouTube allows you to give us money, and of course at store.loadingreadyrun.com, which has some brand new sleeves and shirts that you should check out if you haven't already. With that out of the way, I got back from Japan recently and, well, had to miss an episode because in addition to all the other stuff I brought back a head cold, and that was no fun. But now we're going to go over some of the other stuff that we brought back. In order to save space in my luggage, I thought we're going to cut down on the number of plastic models I bring back. I had some space reserved maybe for a friend of mine who needed a model that I could not find in Japan, and is possible to find online as well. We had some space reserved because Corey wanted a SDF-1 Macross kit. And I think we found something that is going to fit the bill for that. And I did find one model of a Spartanian fighter from Legend of Galactic Heroes that was a resin kit from the 90s. So that will be a long-term project for me. Maybe we'll bring it in for some cleanup in the future to have a look at, but that one's going to be a long-term thing because first time resin kit boy from the Garage Kit days. And of course, you know, I went around looking at the various shops, seeing what's available in terms of model kits and whatnot. And it turns out that there was an interesting series of kits from Studio Suyoto that make sushi. And they make all sorts of sushi there. They got the ebi, the tamago, the shrimp, the egg, the ikura, and of course the mighty toro, or the tuna salmon. And I thought, well, these are real nifty. I don't have space or time and to do this. I'm glad they exist, but I don't need them for myself. I can just look. And then I went up to Akita to go visit my brother and meet a couple of fans of the show. And it was a grand time. And I want to say thank you right off the bat to Kumagai-san for presenting me with what I'm going to say is a wonderful gift and not at all a curse of this, which is the Studio Suyoto Ebi Shrimp Sushi Kit. It's a plastic model kit that we're going to make of sushi. You gave me another box as well for the tuna edition, but unfortunately I don't think that we're going to have time to do more than one of these if we even get through this initial one. Check the top of the box there, you can see that the other models, you've got your tuna, your salmon, your fish roe, kapamaki indeed, ebi, and tamago, or the rolled egg. And it's nice packaging on the box there. Japanese, in Japanese, and on the back in English, asks you, can you make the plastic model sushi? Well, that's when I was trying to translate it from Japanese, anata ni kore ga, and this kanji was flipping me up. I thought, was that tsukure? Is that to make? No. This is the kanji for nigere, nigire in this case. So anata ni kore ga nigereru ka. Can you hold it, is what Google told me. But then I realized, no, that's the same kanji that's used in nigiri sushi, meaning not just a hold, but the specific pressing type hold that they use to make the sushi. And, well, That's my Japanese study done for the day, I think. But this is going to be an interesting one. I thought for a while that I might try to use some what do you call that here? Super glue for this. But they do recommend on the back of the package to use your model cement. This is Tamiya cement. Other options are available, but it's got a nice little brush in the tip, which is nice. So I think we're just going to have to break into it and see how it goes. There's no indication of how difficult the model is supposed to be. There's no grading on it the way you'd find on a Bandai model. I would say that this being a one-to-one model and the level of detail and gimmick in it, I'd say that this absolutely qualifies as a higher grade, maybe a master or in fact real grade. But you'll see. Let's crack open the box there. Get a nice sniff of the free monomers. And let's reveal the pieces. Oh, there's more to this than I thought. Okay. So we're looking at, this is going to be a kit that amazingly is going to be pre-painted. Usually I'm used to kits being just molded in the appropriate colors, just standard, but this has got some painting on it to give it a little bit more realistic color right away. And actually, that's another question. Nope, there are no instructions inside. So we're going to have to use our imaginations on what we should have to do here. Very curious about these rice grains, though.
I am slightly disappointed that all the rice appear to be the same shape.
That was going to be my question: is how much variation were they going to give us on the rice? And the apparent answer is none. These are all biologically identical grains of rice.
Oh, the interference pattern of the two
rice on each other.
The two rice thing is quite cool from the overhead shot.
Dear. How much rice? More rice.
Wow.
A rice moire pattern. Ooh, okay. And here's something where we'll actually probably have to do a little bit of detailing up later, maybe with a little bit of paint, just to get that matching those pieces. It doesn't seem too far off, but maybe just a little bit of weathering.
Right, the tail.
Got to weather your tail just a bit there. So I guess we start by taking some of these pieces off and going from there. I'm thinking what I might want to do is before, rather than gluing these together immediately, we're going to keep these separate and use this to. It's got a little indentation. It might not be easy to see in the light because it's very well lit right now. But I guess if we start by placing the rice in there, that gives us an idea of how much to start with.
So I guess you're just supposed to like glue up the pile. It's not like the rice has like little connecting bits or anything.
No. I mean, I'm not sure how often you study your sushi when you're eating it, Paul, but I do end up spending too much time sometimes examining the grain, and it's always interesting to see the way that rice sticks to itself because we quite often will do onigiri or rice balls at home as lunch. Because it's tasty and delicious, and it's interesting just to see how much pressure you need to form a coherent rice ball together. The answer is not much, actually, and they kind of just stick together and kind of form this gluey bond that's almost directly touching. What's going to be interesting though is trying to break out of the idea of doing anything regular in terms of gluing them together, because we're going to want a nice random pattern. But when you try to do something random, you often end up inadvertently doing the opposite, especially with art or hand-based stuff like that. So I guess, yeah, we should just get started here. I'm going to start by cracking open.
At least the individual grains of rice didn't have like little numbers on them.
I was hoping for a bit more variation and a bit more instruction, but I think this is about as much as we need. The real question is how good are the moldings on this? I know we'll have to do a little bit of cleanup, or maybe we won't if we can get in there, right in there with the God hands on these, which we might end up doing. But I'm curious to see if there's any sort of edge that needs to be sanded off. I'm loath to do so because the glossy sheen on these is just so nice out of the box as it is.
I mean, they have definitely chosen a good, like, it's got that sort of very slight translucentness to it and stuff. Like, they've definitely spent some effort to choose the correct plastic coloring and everything.
The material choices are on point, I would say. All right, and that's almost smooth. Need to get in there just a bit more. You know what? I'm going to just file that down a bit.
I'm kind of imagining that, like, this is what the they talk about the the intense sushi chefs who have been you work on whatever the rice for 20 years.
I was literally about to mention that yeah, you're only allowed to do the rice for a while, and I don't know if this is how they do it, but
yeah. And in order to do that, they're like going through and individually selecting grains of rice, polishing them, detaching them from the sprue.
Yeah, they get shipped in. I mean, I don't know if this is any more or less efficient a way of shipping rice than in a bag, but definitely this way you know that if you're getting the full amount of rice that you paid for, though.
That's true. Yeah. Good point.
You know what I'll do, just to make this easier on myself, is I'm going to clip one of these rows out of the sprue. Ooh.
Easy for counting. If you, for instance, needed to put a bunch of rice onto a chessboard or something.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'd like one clip of rice, please.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. You want your white picket fence? Well, there you go.
Don't mistake it for a magazine of rice. That's a different
yes.
thing.
Okay. Let's get right up to the edge there. And, ooh, that is a nice clean cut, I would say. Now, my eyes aren't what they used to be, but this looks good from here. It's a little bit thinner than a standard, or a little bit thinner than the rice I like to make. So I don't know if that matters or not. But
Critterbot in chat has done the math and says there's 364 grains of rice.
364 grains of rice. Well, wow. You know what? I've got a second kit of this. I think I know what I'm going to do. It's going to be a one piece of rice per day project starting on January 1st. Maybe I'll have to skip some days and do 2 at once. All right. So I think the first one I'm going to lay down, I'm going to lay it down on its side. Just to start being random right off the bat.
So you're building this up upside down, right? Like this would be the bottom. What we're looking at, this white piece is the bottom of the.
Right. Right. Yeah. So this piece is going to go into eventually here, and you can see it's got some registration lines there and there.
Right.
And then that'll be a thick enough and meaty enough piece to. Oh, and then you've got. I'm glad I did this beforehand. Otherwise, I would have probably cut out the tail wrong. It forms a hole there for you to just insert the tail so that I guess it can be adjusted at a jaunty angle.
Articulated tail. Mm-hmm. Again, I do love the idea that it's a proper piece of nigiri should have 364 grains of rice.
Exactly that amount.
No more, no less.
Otherwise, you're just doing it wrong. Speaking of doing it wrong, I have no idea what method I should be using to do this, so I'm choosing to try some tweezers. Probably for the best, because I think trying to use fingers on this would be is going to result in some sticky fingers and stickied model. So let's apply a little brush to the bottom of that sushi. And let's just place it here, I guess. Yep. And then it's sticking to the the tweezers.
I guess there's no way to do this other than just one by one.
Yep. We're going to be involved in quite the meditative process, I guess.
Yeah, it's probably some sort of like, life lesson. In order to make the sushi, you must first begin with the first grain of rice.
One at a time. And just make it nice and clean on everything. There's a wee bit of a rough edge. That said, there's going to be some rough edges on sushi regardless.
It's true.
I have a feeling this is going to be easier as it goes on, but for the moment, getting these first few grains in place is going to be an interesting exercise. So that seems good. I'm wondering if it might be be smarter to clip out a bunch, and then that would probably make things a little bit quicker. Let's do that to start with here. Move that to the side and start clipping. Now,
just keep them on the sprue and have it like a lattice of of rice.
I clip the sprue out after the fact. Okay. Probably shouldn't hold it by the rice when I'm doing that. Oh, that just goes right through.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I was unable to figure out how to get God hand sharpening done while I was in Japan, but
Oh, is the only place that'll do it in Japan?
yes, and I believe they only do it via mail order as well, and I wasn't able to track that down, nor was I confident that I would be able to get them back in time before leaving the country.
Mm.
That said, we did end up staying at the same hotel, coming and going. Well worth. It's a good hotel. I think that's why we did it. But
I feel like maybe we should get like a little dish or we've got
ooh.
the little some little things that we use for.
So thankfully, I brought one of those along just in case I did decide to do the super glue route.
Well, that works well.
Yeah. The reason I was thinking the super glue might work out well is because I've got this little tool that I still need to get a new one of, but it's just a tiny, tiny needle point that usually is much like a tuning fork, but unfortunately got broken during the cleaning due to how small it is. But this is just used for wicking up tiny amounts of super glue that I would put in the thing and then tapping them to the to whatever I need to glue things together with. But I think the cement is working quite well at the moment, so we'll keep on with that. Might want to try a finer. Yeah, I'm going to try a finer tweezer here for the next one, just to see if that makes a difference. And, oh yeah, we should put the rice in the little container. It's not actually full of glue right now, so it's safe. There we go. This is about the rice you leave at the end of the pot in the bowl, just to indicate that you're done eating.
Mm.
Yeah, good thing I don't mix eating and model building too often, because it would be all too easy to just want to pick one of these up and just knock it back. All right. The white on white is a little bit difficult, I think, too, but we'll make do. Okay, let's try another vertical one, and let's put that at an angle. Sure. Okay. Oh yeah, that goes in there a lot easier now. we are. When you put the cement on it too, it adds a bit more glistening, which makes it feel a lot more like like freshly made rice. All right, and this one, I'm worried that I'm getting a little bit of residual glue on my tweezers. And let's have that just branch off a bit to the side. There we go. I hope they adhere enough that it's not just going to fall out when I eventually get the mass out.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking like you could sort of pile up a bunch and then kind of try to like pour glue through it, but maybe that probably wouldn't work.
See, Brownie brings up the question of glutinous rice. I didn't think that sushi rice was classified as a glutinous rice. Because I don't like the term sticky rice, because I've always assumed that Japanese rice was just standard, well, Japonica rice. But I believe that's different from the sort of sticky rice. I think that's different from the sort of sticky rice you get in a Chinese sticky rice, but I could be wrong.
So the stickiness of sushi rice is a different kind of stickiness than sticky rice.
Well, it's not different, but it's a less glutinous amount, I think, in standard rice. Different, I guess, from your basmatis and your jasmines, though.
Yeah,
which don't have quite the glutinous content.
Yeah, I was gonna say, trying to make sushi out of like a basmati rice or something would not get you very far.
You only try that once, I think. Okay, so I was a little worried that this was going to get it was going to be too easy to be samey, but I think that's looking pretty natural.
Is that that sort of cup in the bottom there an indication of where the rice should go?
That's definitely where it should go. My question internally is should it be any wider out than that, or should we just kind of stay in that area? I think we can decide that once we've got a couple sleeves worth of rice in.
I guess you could always add more to the outside.
Yeah. The box does also kind of indicate, where were we here? That it looks like the at least on the tamago, the rice is pretty small, and I guess it's probably similar for the for that. Probably just that's the top, and then it'll come out a bit more close to the edges.
So much of that shrimp is unsupported.
Yeah, things are going to be really difficult as we start gluing rice on rice, I think.
Now I'm just imagining like just a tower, like one kernel, one piece of rice,
one grain at a time,
high, and just like a foot high.
Whew. That's one long piece of sushi. If it's one grain thick, 50 high, and then just wrapped in seaweed. I think I can pick up the pace here a bit too, actually. I'm no longer as concerned about being perfect with my placements.
There's that like, yeah, that perfectly imperfect or whatever. Mm-hmm. There's probably a Japanese word for that.
Ooh, wait, I believe that's yugen. Or wait, that might be sabi. Being taught wabi-sabi and yugen gives you really messes you up sometimes. I believe that was the infinite sadness in things, which I guess would be part of the imperfection of things too.
This sushi has given me infinite sadness.
Just like the that famous, what was the name of that? Smashing Pumpkins album. Whoop.
Uh-oh.
Lost the joke.
Mark that down.
Yep.
That's the first sushi overboard.
And hopefully only one. That didn't pick up anything on the... well, I mean, we had the 15-second rule, too, so everything's fine there. But
Yeah. Still just as edible as it was before.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to do something a little bit crazy and just dab in on the sushi itself here.
It's a good... Arclight Dynamo brings up the point that... Now, we don't have to worry about this yet, but at a certain point, you'll want to think about the bottom of the thing in order to have the model actually be able to be sort of relatively stable.
Yeah, we want stability, but we won't want artificial flatness. You know, when you're making your sushi, you're making it with your hands. It's very few people, other than certain cartoon characters, have perfectly flat-bottomed hands to press the rice against.
Right.
And I don't know if I've ever seen any sushi chef take the sushi, put it gently upon the plate in front of you, and then push it down to make sure that the bottom is perfectly flat.
But on the other hand, you don't want it rounded so that it like tips over.
Not so exactly. So it's gonna have to be fairly stable, but maybe not. Well, it's a model, so if it rocks back and forth, I think that's probably okay. Because it is hard plastic and not soft yielding rice, but yeah, we definitely want something that's not going to just tip over due to the weight of the plastic shrimp. The unbearable weightiness of shrimp. So it was interesting that I was also able to spend some time in Osaka and check out the food equipment district there. And among other things, of which being that if I ever end up in a chance to do a group trip to Japan, I am absolutely going to organize the renting of a quarter-size shipping container just so we can all have a place to put the gigantic stuff we want to bring back that won't fit in our suitcases. Like, say, a full yakitori grill restaurant grade. That one may actually be gone.
Uh-oh.
I didn't hear it land, and I don't know what direction it went in, unless I can see on the floor here. There's something whitish. Nope. All right, that's going to be an exercise for Ian after the show is done to see if we can find that single rice grain.
All right, we're down to 363.
Right. Okay. Need to be a little bit more careful with the tweezers, I guess. Not quite so cavalier. I'm getting a little bit more comfortable pushing down on them just to set them in place too, because it doesn't appear to be causing much. I mean, it's rice. When you take rice out of the rice cooker, it's going to break a bit, and the edges are going to get sticky and pulled apart. It's not going to look perfect.
Well, and as we talked about, the fact that the rice on the sprue are all identical is less good, actually.
Exactly, yeah. So what we're doing is we're just adding more variety by giving them some texture. All right, well, hey, on to round 2, I guess. But as I was saying, I got to spend some time in Osaka and went to the food prep and food equipment and restaurant equipment shop. There was some really cool stuff there too, like people who were making custom Noran, the little curtains that come down in front of shop entrances, and you could have, you know, what they were made for, you know, people to come down to buy one for their restaurant because you want a custom thing. But of course, you know, if you're a paying customer, they'll make whatever you want. So I was considering getting one put together for the office here, but then I thought, that's probably not going to get used all that often. Also, when you've got the L and the R mix-up problem, their transliteration, what do we even call ourselves? I believe is the closest I can approximate.
That's true. It's not maybe not the most international friendly name.
You know what? I don't think localization was top of mind at that particular time.
It's true.
In history.
It's true. Yeah.
Comedy that makes no apologies, sumimasen. But the other thing they had going on there was a couple of shops that were selling off the fake food that you get for the front entrances of restaurants, so people can kind of see what they're eating. And one of the shops was also doing like small classes for tourists who came through. So
on how to make the fake food?
Yeah, so you'd get to make your own little. I think that what they were making, it wasn't sushi. It might have been okonomiyaki, or not okonomiyaki, takoyaki. The little fried brown octopus balls. But they were working with a different plastic that was a little bit more easily moldable, but you had to heat it up first a bit, and of course pushing it into the appropriate shapes and giving it a little bit of a paint with with the same sort of brush you use to brush the okonomiyaki, but with a harsh chemical paint rather than a delicious sauce.
Right. Yeah. I guess they don't. The sushi in the window or whatever is not built like this.
Mm-hmm. I remember seeing a video a while back on how they make lettuce for those sorts of displays, and it's almost like pouring this wax-like plastic substance into hot water and then just letting it kind of form a film on top, and then pouring cold water into the system to not just firm it up, but also to give it that sort of natural crunch coming together that you get by just pouring the water on top. That forces it down through the water and makes it into a nice shape, and then they just pull it together, and it looked exactly like a head of lettuce at that point.
Wow, that's super cool.
Yeah, interesting techniques for making food that's not for eating.
I wonder when that became like the such a very standard thing to do in sort of Japanese restaurants, that sort of doing all the sort of models of all the food.
I have a feeling it probably came about, I would guess, after the Meiji Restoration. I mean, most things happened after the Meiji Restoration when Japan was starting to modernize. But it would definitely be an easier way of attracting people into a restaurant when you can see what the food is that you're getting, especially if you're not familiar with certain foreign foods or new foods that might be being invented.
Is it catering primarily to tourists? That, like, I guess locals would know what that food is.
I think it started out as a thing of just showing people what sort of food you get inside, and then it just became a cultural thing that okay, this is the thing that restaurants do. We show you your food at the entrance. And
rather than just a picture of your food.
Ah, there we go. The Marquette's done some research for us. So in the late Edo period, I was just a little bit too soon. But the sellers displayed a plate of food each day in lieu of a written menu. During the Showa period, in the late 20s, Japanese artisans and candle makers developed food models to make it, there's that wax, that made it easy for patrons to order without the use of menus, which were not common in Japan at the time. So there we go. It was not only, my guess would have perhaps been a question about literacy, but I mean, if the cultural aspect is just not to have a printed menu, that makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah, that would be very handy in some restaurants that I've been to, or some cafes and things.
Well, it also explains why I think we were one of the restaurants we went to, which was a favorite of mine and Corey's, was this Michelin Bib Gourmand rated katsu place. Katsu being the fried pork cutlets. And and it was fantastic and delicious and reasonably affordable for, something that you consider to be a high-class meal like that, for something that's been ranked in a guide. But we had to show up an hour before opening, and we're even then second person in line. By the time it did open, it was the line was completely down the block, so it would have been impossible to get in for the rest of the day. But the interesting thing they did is they brought out menus for us beforehand to look through and choose what we wanted to eat. We'd done our research and had read based on the Japanese menu, and they brought out an English menu for us anyway, but that was fine. But the key was that we got to put in our orders before we even got into the restaurant, which is great for efficiency on their part. And for efficiency on my part, I really enjoyed it too, being able to go in, not having to wait for the person to come by, bring the menus, do the small talk with the water, then wait for them to come back and ask whether or not we have actually been ready to order or not. No, just go in, you know what you're getting, it's going to come directly to you, you're going to eat it, and then you can get up, pay, and leave.
It's almost more like how a fast food place might order.
Yeah, a little bit like that. And I think that I'm like so many times just talking out of my ass here a bit, but I think that might go along. I'm not going to say it follows one way or the other, but I think it definitely goes along with the lack of tipping in Japanese culture. In restaurant culture specifically, that if you're not doing the sorts of things that we always talk about here as being worthy of getting a tip, like, oh, they were always attentive and always brought me water, or they asked me how my food was. It's like, if you take all of that out of there, then it just becomes like, oh yeah, you get the service that you paid for, and then we're all done. All right. Ooh. Looks like there's some fun projects going on in the chat too there as well. Anubis working with white lithium grease and rubbing alcohol to refurbish a VCR.
Nice.
Those are going to start to be a lot more valuable as time goes on, I'm sure.
For like archival purposes?
Archival, and I think we're going to hit a point very quickly, I think, where nostalgia is going to kick in, and people are going to want to, they'll have their home videos, or they'll have their tapes that they taped from their childhood, and they're just going to want to, have the experience of using these VCRs. Yeah, the sounds that go along with it. And just, purely for aesthetics and memory, which is fine. But, we sure do cavalierly like to throw things and dispose of things when they become quote-unquote obsolete. And then in just a few years, they start to become desirable again for a certain group of people. I was, forget where I was seeing it, but a friend of mine was talking about a new video rental place in the States that I think was attached to one of the Alamo draft houses. It was a DVD rental place that also rented the DVD players for people who didn't have them, so that they could have that experience of going to a late stage video rental place.
I do feel like there's obviously there's things like vinyl records and stuff have kind of resurgence and different things, but it's like I feel like it's like there's a nostalgia for records, but there isn't so much a nostalgia for like cassette tapes.
You would think so, and I would have thought so too until very recently. When I was talking,
there is a nostalgia for cassette tapes.
There absolutely is, and I have evidence of this. I think I'm not talking out of school here, but recently got to have a quick visit with a friend of the show, Ken Stacy, Mr. Value Added himself, and he was telling me quite proudly about the audio cassette tape player that he managed to grab from an estate sale, and is now currently having it repaired. It's a nice tape player too.
But why though?
Well, the funny thing about tapes is they actually had a better audio fidelity than records did, just because of the nature of tape being a better and more granular in terms of the amount of data that you can get into it, even though it is still an analog medium. The resolution that you can get on a magnetic tape is higher than you're going to get on a vinyl record.
Interesting. Even very high quality vinyl.
Yep. And of course, then other issues there being is that the vinyl, much like tape as well, is the same idea, but vinyl degrades every time you play it, because you've got this needle that's made of diamond that's running through a vinyl track, and there's going to be some friction there at some point.
I feel like, and maybe this is just my perception as somebody who works in video a lot, but like, it's very easy at this point in terms of quality to not just, obviously we've had higher quality, the resolution that's available on like a VHS tape is not good.
No.
Was it 300 by 4? It's interlaced.
Yeah, so it's 240 by 640 by 320, I think.
But half frames.
Yeah.
So the actual resolution is half of that.
Oh yeah, so it would be 640 by 480, and sorry, I was working on the interlace there. So
right,
320
yeah.
and then 320, 320, 320. Interlace
So
that way.
it's, and it isn't like in it's different than in like a record or something where there's that sort of analog aspect to it. Like, it's already digital. It's an analog. The VHS tape is an analog medium, but it came from a digital source in the first place.
Did it though? I'm pretty sure that analog video was analog all the way around the chain, right?
I mean, I guess I don't know, but I find it hard to imagine how one could translate, like, film as in pictures in film.
Mm-hmm. Like I think what it was is it would be digital in the sense that it's going to be quantized by the sensor.
Right.
But I don't. But each individual cell or receptor itself, I believe, was an analog signal that got put together.
Anyway, what I'm saying is that we can, capture every little nook and cranny and zit in a VHS tape. Mm-hmm. With very, very high fidelity, if for some reason you wanted that. And it is, it's not good.
No, it's not.
Like, I don't, I mean, there's a nostalgia aspect, but I don't feel like anybody, I haven't seen any arguments that VHS, the quality of VHS is, better than
like you do get with
modern alternatives.
Some people will give that with vinyl, but that's, I like to think that's been fully debunked, that the quality of the sound is if you're concerned with audio fidelity, vinyl is absolutely not the one you want to be the horse you want to be backing there. That horse is oddly enough reel-to-reel tape.
Right.
Because then you're getting to use even more tape, wider and faster, and therefore using more for better capture and better quantization. It's interesting. While I was in Japan, actually, I was reading a book called The Information by James Gleek, which was recommended to me by Cameron. And it goes over, actually, a lot of this sort of information. Hey, we got there. But talks about the need or the method of quantizing information into bits. It was interesting to note that both the concept of the bit as a fundamentally a fundamental unit of information. Not even just the digital bit of a 1 or 0, but just saying like the smallest piece of information that you can have within any system is, will be known as a bit, and that happened in the same year as the paper that invented and revealed to the world the transistor. So 2 parts of information theory coming together immediately right at the beginning. But talking about they were talking later on, because this happened at Bell Labs. This has immediate information for the telephone, because what you've got to do is you've got to quantize the information. You can't put all of that information of a phone, of the sound of a human voice, into a phone call.
Right.
There's just not enough resolution on all ends, so you've got to dial it back. And they ended up doing a lot of research in terms of trying to find out how far can you back off that information. How much information can you leave out, and have the intent, the content of the message still come through.
Right. If you don't care about the quality of the sound, but only care about the actual sort of legibility, or
the content of the message.
Yeah, the message. Which is why, which is I think 8 megahertz, right? Is the
it's very low. It turns out it's very low.
Yeah, which is why you may have noticed that for certain, say, Bluetooth headsets are still stuck on that.
But it opens up that sort of ability of, okay, well, now you can put your energy and your bandwidth elsewhere at the time.
Or I think also in the case of telephones, it allowed them to like multiplex.
But it was oddly enough relevant, actually. One of the last things we did in Japan was in Akita. Turns out my brother's city, Honjo, is the headquarters of TDK, a company you probably don't think about all that often these days. And then just this past week, they announced a new discovery, or a new development in solid-state battery design. That it's not great for large batteries for phones, because they're based on a ceramic system. But for watches or for hearing aids or earbuds, this is going to absolutely revolutionize the amount of power that's going to be available to these devices.
Like the power density is?
Yeah, they're talking like something like 1,000 watt hours per liter, or 1,000 kilowatt hours. No, not kilowatt. 1,000 watt hours per liter, which is just astounding.
Wow.
But again, because they're a little bit more fragile, we're just not going to be able to get to that for laptops or for phones. But like I said, yeah, I'm looking forward to having an Apple Watch that I don't have to recharge for an entire month. But anyway, at the TDK Museum, they've got all sorts of great. If you're in Akita, I highly recommend it, because really great English support in the museum. Everything's fully bilingual. Usually in a Japanese museum, you'll get paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of Japanese information about this person's painting style, and then the English section will be just 2 or 3 lines. But it was fascinating to see how involved TDK has been involved in making media, all the way back from cassettes and reel-to-reel, all the way up to Blu-rays and recordable DVDs. But the point of that was that they also showed off a lot of the technologies they invented for recording things to various mediums, like being able to see the operation of a VCR head and learning why a VCR head is tilted the way it is inside. You'd think like, why isn't this head running parallel to the direction of the tape that's turning? Well, when you turn it sideways like this, now if you're encoding your data in stripes, you're actually putting more information on the tape per meter than you would be if you're just putting your quantized information perfectly perpendicular to the direction of the tape.
Cool. So they invented the idea of doing it that way?
Yeah, that was one of their inventions.
Wow.
And then I think actually, even quite frankly, the reading head itself might have been one of their inventions too.
Wow, super cool.
Yeah, very much.
The when I realized that, like, when you have, you with VHS tapes, there was, like, SP, LP, EP.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, my tape is all EP.
I mean, yeah, we should be sorry if you're giving me tapes and EP.
But the idea that to record EP, it just ran the tape slower.
Yep.
Is quite an interesting idea.
It's amazing that just works that way. But I guess that's one of the things they learned from doing reel-to-reel tapes for audio. It's the same sort of system. It's just with video, you're encoding that analog data in a different format, and that has to be read differently than audio by itself.
And I when I was first sort of learning video stuff, we were still in that era. Digital, DVDs and stuff were around, but, like, authoring a DVD was not something that you could do very easily.
No, that was.
And when we would, I worked, I was doing video production at school, like filming the, like, school events and stuff, and we had, like, a whole bank of VCRs that we would run off to make the tapes
tape
to
copies?
sell people.
Nice.
But there was there's that real thing of your generations, right? So you had to be very conscious of, where your master was, and make sure that you're always taking it, you're always taking things from your master, because,
Mm-hmm.
every generation
Generational
you're
losses.
losing significant, like, I think that's, if nothing else, that's something that sort of an objective improvement we've are able to have for the new technology. There's some aspects of new digital technologies that are debatable whether they're an improvement over previous ones. But the idea that you can make a perfect bit for bit copy of something and it will be exactly the same is very valuable.
That's one of my favorite things that Cory Doctorow likes to say a lot, is that computers are good at, I think, two things. And one of them is just making copies of things, making perfect copies of information. And so, anytime we introduce software that keeps that from happening, it always feels like this immense betrayal of the legacy of computers. It's like, no, it's okay for it to make a copy. That's what it's designed to do.
Yeah, it takes a fairly active amount of work to make a computer not make an identical copy of something.
Well, and that's the thing about it too, is that up until the point where computers became ubiquitous, or just even existed and could do this to various pieces of information. I mean, it's all just digital information at that point once it gets into the computer, whether it's video, audio, a program, or whatnot. But the idea of making a perfect copy of something up to that point was an exercise in futility, because you can't make a perfect copy of something in an analog world.
Yeah. And I mean, Real Gamer Cow in the chat mentioned JPEG, but of course that is using incredibly sophisticated algorithms that have been developed over many years in order to compress the data and throw away a bunch of stuff.
Oh, I can. If you're interested,
It's very easy to make perfect copies of images if you're willing to put enough hard drive space
and again,
into the idea.
This comes back to this great book I read. Again, talking about it was talking about compression as well, in that respect. That for JPEGs, it's able to it's easy to make algorithms that, especially for videos and pictures, because things that look similar to each other, like you have in color here, like my shirt, at a certain quantization level, this is all just kind of one color. So that can all be, you can say, okay, repeat this color as you go along 1,800 times, and that saves you a bunch of space. And this whole idea of space-saving algorithms and compression comes partially from code breaking.
Right, of course, yeah.
Because
a compression algorithm is ultimately just like a reversible code.
Exactly. I mean, when you're trying to break down a code, you're trying to look at the content of the information, and you're trying to look for patterns that you're used to seeing. So if it's a cipher put on a language, you can know with statistical accuracy how often certain letters are found in clusters, and it can go up from there. This is part of how the telegraph system started getting upset with people trying to make their own codes and ciphers in a way of compressing their messages down to fewer characters to save money.
Right. But then the compression that the telegraph is using messes that up.
Mm-hmm. Can sometimes, yeah. But you'll get things like, I didn't even think of it, but it makes perfect sense that if you have a message that talks about cows, the statistical likelihood that the word cow is going to appear multiple times within that message is going to be much higher. And so that's a pattern you can start looking for within for breaking that code. And if you go in the other direction, that's a sort of statistical ability that you can use to reduce the size of the message being transmitted and still containing the same amount of information. Cool, we're on to our third set here. Actually, before we drop out here, talking about analog video signals, Paul, were you familiar with the Doomsday Project in the UK?
I don't think so.
Okay, well that was, the original Doomsday Project was, I believe, a Middle Ages project, and it was a census of Britain. And then in the, I want to say, late 70s, early 80s, they revived the project as a census of people, but also of video and photographs and music and information, kind of like an idea of an extended golden record, but just for Britain. Anubis says it's pronounced Doomsday, but said. Pronounced Doomsday, but written Domesday. And it was one of those things that people just wanted to be able to preserve, because it's this amazing project that could be lost to history due to laser rot and the death of new Laserdisc players being made.
So the project that was intended to be a archive of important stuff in case something bad happened. Is itself being degraded over time.
A victim of its own reliance on brand new technology, which is clearly the highest level that we will ever achieve. The question then was, how do we go about preserving these few copies that actually still exist? And what ended up happening was it took people working with analog electronics to develop a little piece of hardware that has an RF jack in from out what comes the Laserdisc player, and digitally saving the content as an analog stream, I want to say. which can then be processed on the computer. In this case, a Raspberry Pi or a PC, to access the information. But that means you get exactly what's on the Laserdisc from an analog source, and that way we're not losing any data from doing an analog to digital process in the process of archiving it.
But I mean, the Laserdisc would have been a digital medium, wouldn't it?
It's again, Laserdisc is again weirdly an analog medium.
Wait, but how can the laser be more on than it was?
It's like think of a Laserdisc like a record player mated with a CD.
But a CD is a digital medium.
Yeah, but what the CD is just pressing ones and zeros into the shiny aluminum surface in it.
Oh.
On the Laserdisc, you're doing it in the record style, where you're putting together an analog wave, or at least what can be quantized down into an analog wave for that.
I was not aware that lasers could read things in a variable way like that. Huh.
So what this means is it was created for the Doomsday Project as a way of archiving that. It's now become extremely popular with other video preservationist people, like those nerds who want to get the original copy of Star Wars that was shown in theaters. Turns out some of the best quality captures we have of that are on Laserdisc. And so the only way to get a good copy of that is to copy this this analog source and then make a digital copy out of that after the fact.
Right, and because it's an analog source, it does have that degradation. If it was a digital source, then you don't have to worry about degradation until the point where it's degraded so far it's actually losing whether it's a 1 or a 0.
Mm-hmm.
But with an analog source, you definitely have that progressive degradation, I guess.
Well, and of course, when you have an analog signal like that, it's more susceptible to interference and to signal degradation over the cable. So even if you're going like directly from the back of a Laserdisc player through the RF port into an RF converter on a PC, you're only going to be the quality of the capture is only going to be as good as that chain from the back of the end of the Laserdisc to the analog to digital converter. Whereas if you capture the analog directly,
you got to get those gold-plated monster cables.
Yep, exactly. But this is also relevant to people like me who love anime, because there's a whole swath of anime out there that was only released only released in quality in Laserdisc. It was just Laserdisc or VHS.
Laserdisc took off a lot more in Japan than it did in North America.
It did, yeah. That's for various reasons. I mean, and we can debate those, but one of them being that their video ownership market has always been expensive. In a way that we got used to cheap VHS tapes over time, thanks to the rental market, and their purchase for CDs and DVDs and for video was always very high comparatively. So they were a lot more used to paying for if you were going to be a collector, the idea of spending $70 on your video is not out of the norm.
I wonder if there's if the medium of anime where talking about compression and stuff, where you're more likely to have blocks of color and that kind of stuff would be more would be work better in a Laserdisc or something. Than video, and also would work better on Laserdisc than on VHS. I don't know, but
Yeah, I'm not sure myself there. Interesting thought.
I mean, we do know that, of course, various upscaling techniques being used on animation have mixed results. shall we
Yes.
say.
Well, the interesting thing about animation for me has been about the cell. That was one of the things I made some time to do, and by made some time I mean like 3 hours on one day, was trolling through a cell shop in Nakano Broadway, looking for cells of animation from old works. And the nice thing about collecting cells is that you only have to look for so long, because there's a certain cutoff point at which there were no more cell animated movies ever made.
Right.
So you can stop there. But it was I like the idea of cells as a piece of movie memorabilia, because they're unlike any other form of movie memorabilia. In other video works, you could own the actual hat that Harrison Ford wore as Indiana Jones, or you could get a prop replica or one of the various props of the blasters from Star Wars, or a costume or what have you, or a script for that matter. But when you have a cell from an animation, because of the fundamental way that animation is made, in the sense that it is people with their hands drawing onto a piece of paper and then having the lines transferred over to the cell, but then painting the color in the lines. You are literally getting a actual artifact that is a portion of that work. In a way that you can't own 1/64th of a second of Harrison Ford's time in 1980s, but you can own 1/64th of a second of an episode of Gundam.
Well, and you would only it would only be like one layer of the cell too. Like aren't they? I guess depending on the technology that they happen to be using, but cells would have been, you would have your background layer and your different different things. So yeah, you would have like one piece of it.
Yeah. So, for example, one of the cells I bought was did not include the background, and so I'm going to have to. Well, no, not going to have to. But the plan for me is to go back through the episode, find the actual frame, and then print out the background after removing the cell digitally.
Oh, neat.
And sort of, have a little bit of spacing, because one of my favorite things about old cell-based animation is being able to see the shadows of the cells as they stack up on each other.
Or you see that thing where like a scene starts and the characters walk in and there's like a bookcase that is clearly a slightly different color than the rest.
Yep.
You're like, something's going to hit that bookcase in a sec.
Don't stand on that part of the cliff. You can see it's a different color. That means it's going to change. You're going to fall. But yeah, so I did end up picking up a cell from Lupin III, Series 2, specifically the episode Albatross Wings of Death.
Oh, neat.
Which, if you're a giant Lupin nerd, you'll know is one of the 2 episodes of that series directed by one Hayao Miyazaki.
Oh, wow.
And if you know anything about Hayao Miyazaki, you know he likes to get very involved in his works. So I have no guarantees, no information one way or another, but there's a very good chance that he, at the very least, touched that cell in some way or adjusted the sketch that it came with. Or at the very least, he looked at it, blew some smoke on it, and called it appropriate okay.
Nice.
But all this to say is that when it comes to animation, you have these cells. And it's unfortunate that they ended up being just trash in the industry.
Right. Yeah. Theoretically, those are the equivalent of the film negatives.
That's the source negatives, right? Wouldn't it be amazing if we could go back and say, hey, we're going to remaster the 1979 Mobile Suit Gundam, but we're going to remaster it by re-photographing every one of these cells in 16K. And so now we have the entire series in future-proofed format.
But none of that has been maintained. Eh?
Well, it was the normal practice at that time to, and that's why there are shops in Japan where you can go and browse for 3 hours all the cells they have. They would just they would, when the production was done, they would just be tossed in the trash, and otaku would go out and dumpster dive specifically for these things. And so that happened a lot less as the industry grew and grew through the 80s and 90s. And then after the 90s, they just stopped making animation on cells.
Yeah, I remember seeing a thing about Tarzan, the Disney, and that was one of their first. Well, it wasn't their first. They had done bits of computer generated stuff and other things.
Most notably, the Rescues Down Under.
And the ballroom scene in Beauty and the Beast was sort of a famous early computer, partially computer generated.
That was a 3D scene, which was what made that special. I think what you're talking about was CAPS. The system is known as there.
But but like for Disney's Tarzan, they had the thing where like every leaf on the tree was like a separate, in the world of cell animation would have been a separate, like it would have been a stack of like 100 pieces of plastic, which obviously wouldn't have worked.
No.
And so they had developed the whole systems for that.
Yeah, a different method of making films for what they wanted to do.
But yeah, unfortunately, it's one of those things where it's, and I'm sure there's artists and things making cell animation, but it's hard to argue with it from a commercial standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also going to get harder and harder to do cell animation for a couple of reasons that I don't think I know of any companies currently producing cells to be made. So I guess we could go back to the old Gainax trick during their very early days when they were doing convention opening animations, which is just using shower curtains that they cut to size because they couldn't afford the proper acetate cells. But the big problem is the lack of trace machines, and that those are starting to die and go away. And the trace machine is different from. It's a similar process to a photocopier, but works in a slightly different way and definitely a less large and bulky way. But that's the machine that you send your Genga, your piece of paper, through with the sketch on it, along with a cell over top of it, and it moves through the machine like a laminator, and then puts.
It's sort of a photographic process to expose the.
Well, no, less of a photographic process and more of that the photocopyish process, where you're
like with a toner.
Yeah, exactly. Where you're getting a static charge to react to the black light that then pulls the toner to it and then seals it with heat.
In the realm of like handmade stuff, I remember I knew an artist who had done some sort of NFB style animation, National Film Board, and it was done by, he took film, so real
just rolls of Kodachrome.
Rolls of exposed film. So film like film, like not even negative, but like positive film.
Yeah, stuff that I'm used.
That was extraneous. It was being thrown away or found in vintage stores and stuff. And then he painted it black. And then scratched into the black the frame by frame animation into the cells, and so of course it looks like it's sort of black with multicolored line drawings on it because it's you can't actually make out whatever is behind whatever the actual image is. All it is sort of a color spectrum.
That is an interesting style.
But yeah, it's obviously it's not something that you can. It's something you can do for a long things, a 5 minute shorter thing for it was like a music video thing, but it was very cool.
Oh, I love those sorts of experimental methods of creating film like that. Let's see, how's that looking? We're starting to get a rice lump here, folks.
Yeah, that's looking very appropriately sort of random.
Yeah. And it's just, I guess it's just kind of putting them down where they feel like they're useful, or which way they should kind of line up. Again, don't know how truly random it is, but
each grain of rice must go to where it is useful.
Oh no, that's too much pressure.
It's like some sort of proverb or something.
Oh, I thought you were actually quoting something. Okay.
No. But it's just like, yeah. The ancient master.
You must know where in the nigiri you are.
Yeah.
To find your place as rice.
Yeah, the grain of rice tells the chef where it belongs.
I've been getting a lot more cavalier with regards to brushing on the glue too, and I think it's working out for me.
You must listen to the rice.
Wow, that takes me back as well to the person who taught me how to make rice appropriately. According to them, you wash it several times until you get to the point where you're without any cloudiness in the water, and then you drain it and you let it sit and dry until you can hear the cracking of the rice as as the water evaporates off the top but remains in the inside and gives it a little bit of cracking.
Listen to your rice.
Mm-hmm. And then you soak it, and then you cook it. But longtime viewers of Tinker Tailor Solder Fry will know that that's not the way I cook my rice most times. You gotta wash it. Always wash your rice. But you don't need to wait and let it dry or crack. Just get it going immediately.
I have heard mixed opinions on the washing rice thing.
Really?
Well, for non-Japanese, like for other styles of rice.
Okay.
The idea that the additional starch on the outside of the rice is beneficial.
Like, interesting.
Is desirable.
I guess maybe if you're looking to have a stickier jasmine, maybe that makes sense.
Apparently, like a lot, from what I understand, a lot of the washing of rice is traditionally because you had a ginormous, 50-pound bag of rice, and so you wanted to make sure you wash it to make sure any, rice weevils or whatever are out of it, and you want to make sure that it's you get anything on it. But
yeah,
in a more
in a cleaner.
Well, in the I don't know. I personally buy my rice in relatively small bags, not tiny, but I don't buy a year's worth of rice all at once.
No, I wash every batch of Japanese rice I make, and because I have done the A/B testing, and it's very apparent how much that extra starch will gum up your rice. If you want rice that looks like this, wash your rice.
But yeah, I think you're more in the style of like the jasmine rice or Thai rice or whatever. Sometimes that extra starch is desirable.
I guess, yeah, it could make sense. I still have been washing my jasmines and basmatis, but
And again, it's probably largely what you want. What you want in your rice.
I mean, really, that's what it all comes down to, right? If you're cooking for yourself. Do what you want to eat.
But there is an idea that it sort of originally came from it being like actually, dangerous, or not dangerous, but actually like an important thing to do for health, and it's maybe not quite so much anymore.
No. That said, the amount that you end up milling your rice in Japan matters a lot for how it's determined to be quality.
That's like how the taking the husk off to go from like brown rice to white rice.
That's your first step. That's table stakes, Paul.
Oh, okay.
Rice is measured by grades that indicate how much of the germ is also ground off till you're just left with just that starch. Doc says, yeah, it's referred to as polishing rice generally, and it can, especially for sake, you want.
I can imagine that would make a big difference.
They'll give you percentage levels of how much it's been milled away. So the highest sakes are going to be a 60 to 70, a 50 to 40% milling, which is to say that 50 to 60% of that germ and that extra rice has been just milled away into nothingness, and you're getting just that starch.
Which I guess if you're talking about sake or whatever, there's probably an aspect of like that's where the flavor comes from, though. Like
or
if
other,
if you're milling it down to just pure starch, you're probably milling away most of the sort of terroir or whatever you want to call it, like the actual sort of what will make it different from other sakes.
yeah, and that's exactly what you want. Is you want that clean taste, that clean pure taste, and the germ just adds the impurities, which give it culturally an off taste. I'm sure there are people who do enjoy the more unctuous tastes of a less refined sake, but that's the idea, is make it clean and pure as much as possible. Speaking of which, that was not a segue to anything other than to say this is probably a good time for us to take a short break. So let's all get up, stretch our legs, swap our fluids, and we'll be back with a little bit more of some sushi creation in just a few minutes. Don't go all the way away. Welcome back to Tinker Tailor's Solder Fry, where we are we're putting together a plastic model kit of some ebi sushi, some shrimp sushi, graciously gifted to the channel by friend of the show, Kumagai-san. Thank you once again so much for that. We're almost a quarter of the way through. We've done this much, and thankfully we have these handy progress bars to tell us how much more we have to go through. So I figure maybe we'll get through this one sheet by the end of today. Maybe not, but at least we're having fun.
So if you go to a Japanese restaurant and you're wondering why your sushi is taking so long to come, this is why.
Yep.
It's a delicate process.
Each individual grain hand cut from a legacy sprue. Bring you the finest in plastic deliciousness.
I saw somebody asking about like if there are other sushi model sets, not just like other
ones in this
ones in this thing, but like other brand. Like, is this a thing?
This is, as far as I know, so sushi model specifically, I haven't seen any others myself. I I don't know about other foods before the cup noodle ramen model kit that we also built on stream a number of months ago. But I think that if there are others out there, they're probably inspired by that, and then this set as well.
I guess there's a certain amount of sort of meme-ness to it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
of like it's one of those things where sort of the fact that the set exists and sort of I built this set that's sushi and every individual grain is separately thing is sort of the point of it, as opposed to people actually wanting a model of sushi.
Yeah, if you want a model of a particular piece of sushi, as we've already talked about, in major cities, there's already the replica food makers.
Right.
That said, it just occurs to me that this is absolutely not as expensive as one of those pre-made pieces would have been. I think a piece of sushi we're going for about the equivalent of 45 Canadian dollars.
To get a wax replica or plastic or whatever they use.
Yeah. This, I think, I don't know what the. Usually they've got the pricing written on these things or the suggested retail price, but maybe not this one.
I mean, it is definitely has a certain meditative quality to it.
Yeah, I remember when seeing them in the shop that I was at. It was the reason for not purchasing was not due to a lack of funds. It was more due to do I really want to commit to this? But when you can force another person to do it outside of their own accord, even better. That's what gifting is for. All right.
It does have a certain I don't know, ironic punishment thing, you know. So you like building models, do ya?
I was thinking as we just started this particular topic, I was trying to think, I'm not going to take this down to the local model competition next time it comes up and enter it in as a out of the box, or maybe I will.
But there's like I don't know, in the wonderful book, The Phantom Toll Booth. You know, there's the demons that are messing with people, and they're like, you have to, you know, move this pile of sand, and all you have is a pair of tweezers, or you have to empty this well, and all you have is an eyedropper. They're the demons of wasting time. It's like you have to build this sushi, but you have to take every single grain of rice by itself
and place them with tweezers. Oh, great! Wow. Threaten me with a good time, why don't you? Yeah, I was questioning when we started here, because normally, you know, when I deal with a model, it's either just colored but not pre-painted like this one is. I thought, that kind of takes away some of the personalization that comes along with model building like this. And then I looked at the pile of rice here and realized there is going to be no other pile of rice out there that is going to look like this one. This one is going to be mine. And so I guess that's where the customization comes in.
There are many like it, but this one is mine.
No, I think we're doing good in terms of spread. We don't want again the sushi to the rice to poke out past the edge of the thing. But I feel like maybe I think I should fill in a bit more areas along the front edge here a bit. It feels like there's a little bit, not quite enough rice on the bottom base for my taste. So maybe we'll do that here.
Oh, could you just move the boxes? Just
Oh yeah, sorry. Here's the
down a
box.
little
Yeah,
bit.
stuck in the shot. There we go. Yeah, maybe 3 or 4 more out there.
It is, if you are a very experienced sushi chef, there's a lot of skill and technique and artistry that goes into making the sushi, but you don't get to decide the color of the. You don't get to you don't paint the shrimp, or at least I hope not.
Well, not with color. The good sushi chefs, you'll get a good little brush with the soy sauce on top, and then they'll do that for you. But that's if they're high end and opinionated.
I remember, I think it was in an episode of like Iron Chef or something, where they had Iron Chef Miyamoto. They were traveling I think they were in America or somewhere, and they had Chef Miyamoto, the Iron Chef Japanese,
Iron Chef Japanese too.
and they bring him to he's going to a culinary arts school, and they're making sushi, and you read stuff, and they go, oh, could you please would you do us the honor of me? But it's like at that point, like in the process that they're sort of demonstrating stuff, and so at that point, like the rice and the fish have already been like prepared.
Oh, they've been pre-cut and pre-made.
So they have this incredibly skilled chef, and he's like he sort of takes a handful of rice and puts a piece of fish on it. There, it's like that wasn't really the part that is like the.
I would agree, but I think I need to send you a couple of pieces of media about sushi making. The grip portion is vital.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It has a lot to do with not just the shaping, but it's the shaping in addition to how much pressure you're putting on it. Because you need to be able to, and it's not even just about doing it once. If you're cooking for yourself, that's one thing. The minute you actually move to a restaurant situation, you've got to be able to replicate this thing exactly the same, dozens to hundreds of times each day. But you've got to be able to grip that rice just enough that it's going to maintain its form, but not enough that it's going to be, compressed or take away from the texture or make it too chewy.
You never make sushi angry, or else you'll
too much pressure.
Grip it too tightly.
Put it under too much pressure and it'll crack. Oh wow, that was another row, just like that. Whoop. But when I went for my omakase experience, it was interesting to see the division of labor. This was a type of shop that was trying to democratize the idea of omakase sushi, which is the type where there's no you don't choose off of a menu. It's just a selection from the chef of what they think is good right now. Usually based on the quality of the fish that day or what's in season and whatnot. But it was nifty to see the division of labor within the shop. The person in front of me was tasked with simply just grinding wasabi. Whereas another person just down the line was cutting up the slices of tuna for that particular plating.
It was like an open kitchen, so you got to sort of see everything.
I mean, it was it wasn't much bigger than Studio B. just essentially just a counter. I think it had a dishwasher, but not much else. Sink and a stove.
Guess when talking about sushi, there isn't even that much that you need to cook on the stove. Rice and egg, I guess.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's the egg is the big one.
Yeah, there's all sorts of special, or that's another very advanced, something that can have a lot of nuance to it, I would guess.
It was when I was first reading about or learning up about the finer points of sushi. The book that I was reading was suggesting that the egg or the tamago sushi is the one that you want to try first, because that's the one that's going to give you the indication of what the skills of the chef and the restaurant are like.
Oh, that's like a good bellwether for the rest of the.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if that stands. That I think that book was published in the mid-'80s, but it makes sense. It takes a delicate touch to make a good egg omelet, a good tamago that's not rubbery, but is light and sweet, and also not too jammed up with the rice. You still get the chance to test their rice and their forming technique. But I mean, choosing the fish themselves at market is a skill in and of itself.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
Not to disparage that end of the industry.
I always thought that would be a good, I mean, I guess that would be for many chefs. That sort of the dream is to be in a situation where you're sort of like, and there's a couple of restaurants around town here that do that, where it's like, we're open from now until we run out of food. This is what we're serving.
Yep.
If you want it, come and get it. If not, that's fine.
Yep.
And
we'll be fine.
And we'll be fine. And it is what it is. It's what I want to make. That's sort of your, the sort of ideal, the platonic ideal of a sort of what a chef wants to do is, make what he thinks will be the good thing to make that day.
You're coming here because you want my food, not necessarily what a specific thing.
Yeah. No substitutions.
But yes, reservations. I hope that as much as I do love Anthony Bourdain, I do hope that he had to wait a few hours or days in heaven before they had a table ready for him. No reservations. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Bourdain. You'll just have to wait for a place to open up. Okay, I think we might be getting close enough to wide enough for me to be happy with that. Yeah, when you started that sentence saying that that's the dream, I thought you were going to say, "Oh, that must be the dream of every chef to go down to the market and pick their fish for the day." And my thought was, "My God, that's 4 a.m. that you have to be there for. That does not sound like a dream at all."
No, yeah, only, not necessarily every chef's dream, but
to have that control level. Yeah.
But the idea of sort of being able to just kind of make whatever inspires you that day. Oh,
that one didn't get far, thankfully.
All right.
Make what you're most comfortable with the best ingredients. Although, on the other hand, that can sometimes be... you can spend some interesting time describing that in a less glorified manner. One of the last meals I had in Akita was my brother, one of his bartending friends, put together for us a absolutely elaborate spread of washoku, traditional Japanese dishes. and specifically Japanese traditional Japanese dishes, including mountain vegetables, all of which were locally sourced, very locally sourced, and very locally available. To the point when he was running down some things, running down ingredients, and he said, "Yeah, this is a chopped green something something tataki. The bamboo shoots underneath I harvested from some guy's yard."
Well then, that is local.
Yep, that's hyper local cuisine. But it was one of the best meals I had while I was there. So
Did the guy know that he was taking the bamboo shoots?
I like to believe so. As much as it's funny to be just to think of a guy just pilfering random bamboo shoots, although he might not be a grower of bamboo is what I'm thinking. We were there during the.
It might have been just like a wild bamboo.
Well, we were there during one of the 72 micro seasons in Japan, specifically the season where bamboo shoots grow very fast, is how it's known.
72.
72 micro seasons. Do not ask me to list them all because I only recently became aware of the idea of these 72 microsystems or micro seasons, but it is a thing.
So each season is like 4 days?
Yeah, I say effectively.
Are they evenly spaced, or is it like something happens and that denotes that we're now in the next season?
Yeah, I think it's more of a hey, now is the time when this happens, rather than this day is the beginning of spring.
Right. Wow.
Honestly, it makes a lot more sense season-wise than this arbitrary date that we pick here, especially with climate change changing everything.
I mean. Although I would also say that it's sort of a slightly different usage of the term seasons than we're used to, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I was absolutely told with great authority by many people when I was living in Japan that, Japan is one of the only countries in the world that has four distinct seasons. And everyone who hears that gives a kind of shrug, but their summers are very summery, and their springs are definitely a very different season in between the idea of the rainy summers and the winters.
I do feel like that's one of those, the thing about like, oh, if you don't like the weather, just wait for 5 minutes, and everybody thinks that's like something specific about their town. It's like, oh, the weather in my town, oh, it's so weird. You just do if it's raining, you don't like it. You
just wait 5 minutes.
Yeah. And it turns out that like every town is actually like that. That's just weather. I mean, I have seen it rain out one window and be sunny out the other window. Mm-hmm. In my house, when I was living at my parents' house, like that. You sometimes do get weird weather, but that's just weather.
Don't know if that's quite microclimates or not. But yeah.
On the subject of the food like that, my brother lived for a number of years in Italy, and of course, there's lots and lots of wonderful food.
Yes.
And also, like, you go to the place, the little town called whatever, where the sauce that's named that thing is actually named after this town. And you're saying that there is one thing that you get though where it's like, you can go to they're really big on that kind of simplicity in good local ingredients and stuff, which he's saying is excellent to a point. Like, there's you can get a very very well made tomato sauce made from local ingredients with the finest everything, and it's like, yeah, it's really good, but it's also like at a certain point, you do kind of want a little more stuff going on.
Yep. Purity of ingredients type thing.
Yeah, the purity of ingredients is great in certain circumstances, but yeah, there's at a certain point something a little more fancy or a little more complex sometimes is what you start craving.
Mm-hmm. I kind of feel that way about a lot of people I know who talk about salt like it's a bad thing. Like it's something that should be avoided and reduced in every opportunity. Like, no, that's it tastes real good. I mean, if you got a health reason for cutting back on it, maybe that's a good idea. Also, maybe you should make your choices about which is important to you. But salt's there's a reason it tastes good.
I mean, I sort of feel the same way about sugar too. I personally really don't like most sugar substitutes.
Absolutely.
I find they have a bad. I don't like the aftertaste and stuff, but also just from a sort of philosophical standpoint, it's like if you're gonna have a pop or you're gonna have a piece of chocolate cake or whatever, just have the cake, have the whatever, acknowledge what it is. Don't pretend that it's going to be healthy for you.
Maybe treat the treat item as a treat rather than something you can have all the time because it doesn't have calories due to a bad sweetener.
Yeah. I always think about Coke Zero or whatever, those type of drinks where it's like, yeah, if you look at the things on the side of the nutritional information on the side, it's all zeros.
Yep.
But clearly there's stuff in it. It's not water. So it's just they found it's just got stuff in it that we don't measure yet.
or just doesn't affect us in the ways that we're measuring.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we've got speaking of salt, we've got I noticed somebody brought in some pink salt potato chips.
Oh, yes.
Which is, I guess it's just like a fancy version of salt and vinegar potato chips.
Can you taste the pink?
I think they maybe tasted a little saltier than I imagined, but yeah, I don't know what pink salt is supposed to taste like. So
it tastes like salt. It's the coloring is or the impurities in the salt which cause the pink color do not do too much to adjust the flavor. But I've often seen pink salt come from Himalayas, or at least be marketed as Himalayan pink salt. So.
Right. Although I'm sure there's once there's a market for pink salt, it's not that hard to make salt pink if that's what you want.
Yeah. It's the gray the gray granulated salt that you'll get from fancy English boxes and whatnot.
Gray granulated salt.
It's because it's very impure. Probably has some sand mixed in with it.
Yeah, I guess that's the ironic thing is that, the more the regular salt, that sort of table salt, is the sort of purified form, and the sort of quote unquote fancy salts are fancy because they have the impurities they have in them.
Well, it's
like talking about the rice and the polishing the rice.
It's interesting you bring that up because the what we consider to be the clean table salt is in some ways the most adulterated because it's got iodine in it.
Right, to stop it from clumping. And also just because people, it was one of those fluoride things where they're people need more iodine. Salt is something that everyone eats. Let's just put it in there and nobody will notice.
You need it for your thyroid.
It's just one of those sort of weird public health things that just kind of goes under the radar. That was a choice that was made at some point, and we'll just kind of stick with it.
That said, I would like to see more fluoride back in water. Thank you very much.
Right, iodine is a different thing. Yeah. Don't we not have fluoride here?
I believe Victoria does not fluoridate their water. And we used to have, when I grew up, we had non-fluoridated water, but it was local well water, which was nice. The local well and cistern was actually the next property over from where we were.
That would make sense that it's not fluoridated at that point.
But that means that we ended up having in our glasses cupboard next to the daily morning juice glasses was the little dropper bottle full of fluoride.
We never had that. I kind of assumed that we had fluoridated water here, but I don't know. Fluoridated.
Mm-hmm. I know that Calgary at some point in the memorable past removed it, and they had a noticeable uptake in tooth decay amongst children in the city. But they've got different water problems right now. Good luck to Calgary. I was amazed to see the pipe that they got sent up for replacement for their damaged water main had a scrawled message from the manufacturers down in San Diego of "Get well soon, good luck, Calgary."
Oh, jeez.
Kind of the opposite of the idea of writing a message on the bombs.
I guess, yeah.
But also, hopefully, a wake-up call for our own municipalities here, especially with the new information about the increased dangers of the Cascadia subduction zone.
Dangers of what?
Apparently, Victoria and southern Vancouver Island may be hit harder with the upcoming The Big One earthquake than we thought we would be. Because of I was going to say the design, but the shape of some of the plates are flatter than they'd assumed previously. And so that can mean when things do move, they'll move faster and further than previously expected.
Uh-oh.
Yep. I believe. So yeah, if you're a resident of the Victoria area, do check your tsunami warning levels and plan accordingly.
I was gonna say. I mean, that is one of those things where, like, even there's things like global warming and stuff that is like, oh, I'm just one person. How can I make a difference? This is even past that, where it's like there's nothing.
Yep.
I mean, you can obviously prepare yourself,
but you can't
in terms
stop
of
it.
Stopping it from happening, it's just like it'll happen or won't happen or might happen.
It will happen, but no one knows when, and no one can do anything about it. And that's a hell of a fun sword of Damocles to live under.
Yeah, I remember seeing I think it was an IMAX show or is it an Omnimax show up at in Vancouver in the Science Center. Just remember because it was narrated by Patrick Stewart.
Ooh.
About the Ring of Fire, which is talking about the ring around the Pacific Ocean thing, and it was one of those like. The Ring of Fire. You go, ooh, this is very interesting. Wait a minute. That's where I am.
This was cool 5 minutes ago.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Wow, that's really coming together, isn't it? Get a quick dry mate there. Okay.
Nice.
Whoa.
Whoa. It's like when it's the other way around, it's like it's a little boat for rice.
A rice boat. Can you survive the great wave?
It's interesting that that the sushi is in the two parts like that. I guess it's so that the tail can go on easily.
I think, yeah, that makes sense. I feel like I think I might want to actually even extend it out a little bit further before building it up too much, because we still got this whole other sheet of rice here.
Right. Does it feel pretty securely? Oh yeah, that's pretty stable.
And I'm not going to push on it too hard because it's still technically curing, but things aren't moving around. Like
Excellent.
When I put a piece of rice down and give it a little bit of pressure, nothing else moves. So yeah, let's do another round around the front here and see if that fills it out in a nicer way. It's also nice because this is the most I've used this this bottle of plastic cement too, so that's nice. When you're working with Mecha, you don't often get a chance to glue things down because everything's supposed to be mobile and posable.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this sushi is not going to have a lot of posing capabilities.
Look, Paul, I did look for an aftermarket decal kit for the sushi, and just I couldn't find one. Can't detail up on this guy.
Get some some slide-on transfers.
Love the slide-on. Do not like the rub-on. I mean, the rub-on are cool, but haven't had good luck with them recently.
I mean,
whew. Excuse me one moment.
good reflexes on the mute. Good reflexes on the mute there.
Hopefully I got it in the right direction.
Yeah.
Good.
What you don't want to do is, sneeze and all the rice goes everywhere.
Oh no. I don't even know if this is one of those companies I can write in and get a replacement sprue.
I need 3 pieces of rice. Could you please send me?
That's something I didn't realize, but I'm very happy to hear that Bandai will do, is that if you've got damaged pieces, you can send in photographic evidence to them and they'll just send out the whole sprue that you need
Oh, nice.
replaced.
I mean, I guess you could 3D print one of these pretty easily, too. A sprue, I mean.
Oh yeah, the sprue probably. Individual grains of rice, I would hate to try to do the cleanup necessary on this. The technique I feel like that is best is to just kind of get it down and then shove it into position-ish. Because if you start trying to organize things too much, then you're going to have it look organized. But if you want that organic look, which is what I'm trying to get in the front there, but well, it seems to be working.
Yeah.
In my mind. Right. Paint, and then place. And just like that, it's down. Oop. Even if it gets pushed into a position you're not entirely sure about, it's probably better than the one you were planning.
And it's interesting, you're sort of like always kind of putting it into a groove or a slight, a slight depression being made by two other pieces of rice, or and so in some ways you're sort of always striving to flatten out the bed of rice while never actually being able to do it. You're always sort of, oh, I'll fill in this gap and I'll fill in this gap. Oh, now there's a gap in between those two, so yeah, I'll fill that in.
Just trying to make sure that that gap doesn't get too big, or that you're not, favoring one side, which I might have been actually doing a little bit.
Yeah, it's true. You got to be a little careful. You don't want wonky rice.
Mm-hmm. I can, in fact, do a couple on this side just to fill things up in along the top there. I can see there. Let's bring that in on that side. Oop, come on. Get off. Go. There we go. Where did it end up? Where it needs to be. There we go. And then we got a vertical position there.
I guess from a modeling standpoint, you could save material by just building like the outside, like leaving it hollow on the inside.
Well, that is what Bandai did with their cup noodle model kit. They didn't do every individual noodle. They just did a noodle plug, I guess you could say. Where was the... there it is. So here was my thought on that, is that you're going to get something interesting by doing it this way, which is a bit of shine through, I think.
Yeah, you do. It does definitely take advantage of that sort of slight translucentness to the plastic that they chose, that you probably can't really replicate any other way.
Certainly not by like having a solid core, unless the solid core. Well, even if the solid core was perfectly translucent, that would wouldn't replicate this sort of fractal refraction of the of rice.
This is the kind of thing where, like, they always talk about like or think about like Lego kits, where you get annoyed because, like, instead of building it out of pieces, the boat is just like two big molded pieces of Lego that you put together. So, like, there's a version of this kit that's like, 3 pieces of pre-molded rice that you just attach together. It's like, it's just not the same.
No. That's it. I did enjoy the Lego boats that had the full hull, because they would actually float.
That's true. Yeah, Lego not known to be seaworthy.
Watertight.
Yeah.
That said, you don't need to worry about sacrificial anodes. I only mentioned that because I was reading an article earlier this week about the USS New Jersey, which is a now museum piece, and they were talking about the fact that they removed all of the sacrificial anodes on it because it turns out they were the wrong type once it got
So they weren't actually being sacrificed properly?
Exactly, because the ship had been moved from ocean waters to river waters, freshwater.
In freshwater, you need a different type of material.
Yeah, you can't just rely on the saltiness of the ocean to work as your electrolyte as easily.
Oh.
So I think they went to aluminum from I think zinc, I want to say. It's something I've always wanted to add to my car, because I'm always worried about, specifically it being a Mini, it rusting out. And I was looking at a Volvo from the 70s a few weeks back that had not a sacrificial anode system, but an active anti-rust system that was hooked up to the power source.
Wait, so that it would actually like charge the outside of the car?
With a slight electrical charge to keep it from rusting.
Doesn't that just like drain its battery?
I mean, yep, you do need to make sure to keep your battery charged, but...
Even when the car is off, it does that?
Especially when the car is off. Rust happens at all times, Paul.
Yeah, they're polarizing their hull plating.
There we go. It was definitely an aftermarket piece of equipment.
Did it work?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Again, a Volvo from the mid '70s with a completely rust-free body in Victoria, of all places. I mean, we don't salt our roads now, but the salt air can potentially be an issue.
I mean, we salt our roads.
No, you're right. Yes, we do. Why did I say we didn't?
Yeah. I would say that Victoria doesn't get very much snow, and people here are very excited to put down salt.
Yes.
They don't get to use it much, I guess. And so the moment any tiny amount of snow hits the thing, like, I swear the last time we had snow here, there was, like, the layer of salt on the road was thicker than the layer of snow on the road.
Absolutely. I mean, they use it like they feel like it's going to go bad before next season.
It's just, we don't get snow very much. We don't get to salt things. It's very exciting for us.
Yeah, no, just not quite the same salt level as Ontario, though, thankfully.
No,
Which
no.
is constant and forever. That said, I still think, well, no, we do get occasionally below freezing, too. I still think that the Niigata prefecture, Japanese idea of just, putting some pipes down the middle of your road with sprinkler systems in them to clear the snow is a good idea.
Yeah. Wait, what?
It
Doesn't that just make ice?
if your temperature stays just above freezing, no.
Ah.
So yeah,
Only in very specific circumstances.
Exactly, or usually during the day too when it's snowing. Then
It's like snow and then raining is like the worst situation. It's when you get like horrible ice patches.
Mm-hmm. But seemed to work for them. I don't recall that many. Actually, I don't recall experiencing or seeing any traffic accidents in the entirety of my living life there. So, I guess that's high praise.
I remember seeing a thing, when there was something going around about, oh, well, we'll have heated sidewalks and stuff in order to, keep them clear of snow. And, somebody, does the math and, like, the amount of power, the amount of, like, heat you need to keep like, to melt, the amount of snow, a significant amount of snow, is just ridiculous.
Oof.
Like, it is not a good calculation. Like, removing it physically, or washing it away with water or whatever, if assuming you're above freezing. But moving it physically is so much more effective. I mean, you even see, like, when they do pile up snow, like, from, when there's a snowplow or whatever, they pile it up, and, like, the snow is still there, like, 2 weeks after it's been quite sunny and warm out.
Paul, you got to go to Edmonton and ride the trains next to their snow storage yard. There were years when it would be May before the piles of collected snow had eventually managed to melt off.
Yeah. Water is an extremely good store of energy. So yeah, it's heating the road or the sidewalk in order to stop it from icing over is not
the best situation.
Yeah, that is not a long-term plan.
Well, people forget that up until the invention of efficient refrigeration, that people would have ice delivered for their ice boxes, which we now call refrigerators. but were then literally refrigerators without any of the mechanics, and just a big old box to put a big cube of ice in the top, and the cold air would just trickle down through your ice box. And those that ice had to come from somewhere, and because it was not efficient to make, refrigeration didn't exist at that time as a technology. What would happen is you'd have people go out to freshwater lakes in the winter, cut ice, and put them in well-insulated warehouses to be distributed throughout the rest of the above zero year.
Something about I'm imagining like a lake ice, whatever, ice mine. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess a quarry?
Quarry but the thing is, you're cutting out blocks of ice. It would basically look like a Minecraft. Like it would be just big like cubes of ice being removed.
Until much like our own Minecraft situation, someone digs a little bit too deeply and then James falls in a hole.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that was considered normal.
I feel like that the one of the big deficits from not having ice boxes as a thing that people normally have is that the concept of having an ice pick as like a murder weapon went way down.
Yep.
The instances of ice pick related murders fell off the cliff right after ice boxes went out of usage.
Definitely for the common man. Sorry, not usage. Yeah, sorry, you were saying murders, not usage.
Yes. Well, the fact that people just didn't have, giant spikes, giant metal spikes.
Yeah.
Readily available. Yeah.
Oh, that said, the tradition of forming a ice ball for your drink, by hand using an ice pick, is still very well alive in Japan.
Ooh.
And that's a fancy thing to see, is to get a nice cocktail with a hand chiseled and sometimes hand shaved using a knife or a razor ball of ice.
So not like in like a fancy like spherical ice freezer thing. They actually take a cube and cut it into a
made by hand.
Ooh.
Although if you want the cool equipment, my favorite method of making round ice balls after the fact is I've only saw it once at a Starbucks flagship store, but it was essentially a cube of brass that had 4 pieces of metal as guideposts drilled through the 2 halves, and you would take a cube of ice that was larger than the sphere hole, and just place the block on one of the half blocks on top until it all melted itself into this perfect sphere.
That is pretty cool. Like as opposed to just like having a silicon form or whatever that you pour the water into.
Oh, the silicone forms are so disappointing. They always come out cloudy, and sometimes they don't freeze right, and you'll usually, because of the way you fill them, they've got a dimple in the top. They're a sad approximation of a real hand-chipped ice sphere. But sometimes it's the closest we can get. Hey, Arclight Dynamo has in the chat posted a picture of that very device.
I remember for some reason I went randomly down a rabbit hole of looking, checking out stuff about like the techniques for making the clear ice, right? The very making sure, and there's all sorts of different ideas and sort of gadgets and things for there's the idea of sort of differential freezing. So you insulate
Yeah.
all the sides except the top, so that it freezes from the top down and pushes all the impurities.
Yeah, this was something that the Studio Neat guys went through a long process with too. The people who made the Glyph phone holder that Graham and I love so much, they decided to do a spherical ice kit as well, and again doing that whole research and science aspect, and eventually coming back on that. Yeah, you need an insulated area around the ice.
In sort of you sort of have like a bunch of sort of sacrificial ice.
Yeah.
Like you sort of have a reservoir below that's full of cloudy ice, and then you have a nice clear section at the top.
Yep. Again, difficult process to do at home, much easier to do if you have the industrial capabilities to do it at scale. Or just buy big blocks of ice and learn how to chip your own spheres. I'm sure you won't injure yourself too grievously. Like ice pick's a tiny hole. Just make sure your tetanus shots are up and use pure water. And then you've got a marketable skill. Not for anything but bartending, but still.
One specific area of bartending.
Yeah, exactly. Can you mix a drink? Oh, heck no, but I can make you a heck of an ice cube.
A nice sphere, I guess.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. The ice sphere seems like it's the easier one to make. I would prefer a perfect cube of ice.
See, I would have thought a cylinder
Ooh, yeah.
is what you want. Then it fits nicely inside the glass, right?
Oh man, yeah. There are some bars out there that are doing some interesting stuff with that. Not giving you a cylinder full of ice, but in fact giving you a reverse cylinder in a block of ice to be used as your glass.
So that the glass itself is ice.
Mm-hmm. Which to me just sounds like a recipe for too much dilution for your drink, unless you're really pounding them back.
Yeah, I guess it encourages you not to nurse it too much.
Which can be a problem I have, honestly. All right.
As somebody who does not, doesn't drink, I was, for the longest time I was confused about the like whiskey as it's often as people often enjoy it as something, it's like, oh, this is a very nice whiskey, and you sort of really savor it, and the flavors and aromas and stuff, and then you always see, like in like westerns, they'll be like whiskey, and then they take the thing and just shoot it
Clang.
back. I have been informed that's because it was very, very bad whiskey.
Yes.
The objective is to get it into you without it touching your mouth, as little as possible.
Yeah, you're there for the side effects of the drink, not necessarily the taste.
I think that was like in Deadwood or something, where a guy comes to the heroes comes in to the bar, and the guy who runs the bar, his second in command comes over and goes, "Hey, the sheriff's here." He goes, or the new sheriff's here. He's like, he ordered a drink. He's like, did he drink it like a man, or is he sipping on it?
Yes, the man version.
Yeah.
Take it as fast as possible. Engaging with nothing.
Yeah.
Did Marty McFly order milk at the bar when he was there in the past? Or am I thinking of a different media property?
Could be. That sounds like something that would be. Or like a root beer or something.
Oh, yeah, that probably makes the most sense.
It was something, something not good. Or
Give me
not, yeah.
Hey, bartender, give me a whiskey and a Pepsi.
It would have been a Pepsi, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it probably should have been, given, just to connect them all together. Pepsi free. You're going to have to pay for it. As much as I dislike the idea of reboots and remakes, that feels like something that could probably... I don't know if I want a remake of it, but a reimagination of the Back to the Future.
Back to the Future?
Yeah.
I mean, or just, I guess, that concept, but sort of with a different story you could almost do.
Exactly, yeah.
Which I think is something that is, I think, should be explored more in terms of whatever reboots or new property. Like, did this idea, like, you could make whatever a new movie of a certain thing that isn't it's not a sequel to the previous one, because it's a new chronology or whatever.
Yeah, no connection to the characters or the plot events, but
just the concept. If the sort of concept is a good one, that it could be, and so it can. I mean, obviously you can't make it people not compare them, but at least you can sort of have it stand alone to a certain extent.
Isn't that kind of what they did with the Chris Hemsworth Ghostbusters?
They sort of did. It didn't go that well for them, but
I blame the consumer.
Yeah, there were the problems with that movie. That wasn't the problem with that movie. It was the not adhering enough to the source material, I guess. And the Chris Hemsworth Ghostbusters, he wouldn't be necessarily considered to be the star of that movie.
What, you're saying Janine wasn't your favorite character from the original Ghostbusters?
I mean, she was pretty cool.
Yeah.
The Ghostbusters, like,
yes,
the real Ghostbusters cartoon was, like, one of my favorite shows as a kid.
Oh, yeah, I agreed. And then finding out that how much of it was done by J. Michael Straczynski.
Oh, really?
Basically, any time there was an episode that had anything to do with lore or establishing canon within the show, you can pretty much be guaranteed that it's a JMS credit on that. Which explains a lot about why I love his later work.
I always remember my favorite thing from the cartoon was there was some Sandman ghost that puts everybody to sleep, and everything's in disarray because it puts everyone to sleep, and everyone sort of takes on the persona of whatever they were dreaming about.
Yes.
And so the Ghostbusters are rendered completely ineffectual because they're like cowboy and whatever.
and Ray.
And then but what saves the day is that Janine dreams about being a Ghostbuster, which is kind of awesome.
Oh, lovely. An absolutely lovely kids' cartoon sentiment. Looking good. Or rather, looking thick. That's almost...
that's...
It's getting there. I think it needs to be just another third higher, which means I can probably fill in some of the areas around it a bit more, too.
I was going to say, you've still got, you're only halfway through your rice, or less than halfway through your rice. It's going to be a pretty rice-heavy...
Yeah. Although I'm going to need to do more, because I've already noticed here we've got two pieces that would absolutely fit the bill for making this a rockin' piece of sushi. And not in the musical.
Yeah, rocking, but not in the good way.
More in the Elvis physical way. As opposed to the metaphysical Elvis. Do not ask me to explain the metaphysical Elvis. Okie dokie. I think we've got time to finish up probably this last sprue, to be honest. Which means we're almost halfway done. I don't know if there's a speed run out there on these, but I feel like I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's a bulk gluing technique, I guess.
I'm not aware of.
Which, to be honest, like, if you had like a whole bunch of these, it would be interesting to experiment with ways of you know, like dunking a whole bunch in glue and molding them or something like that.
Well, we mentioned this a bit before the show, not to talk out of school, but one of the ideas I was thinking of doing was cutting out all of the individual pieces of rice and then just dumping some of this, I read poison, some of this poison on them, and then just forming them in my hands because the cement won't stick to my hands, just the melted plastic will. So ideally, if I'm quick enough, I can properly mold it like an actual piece of sushi. But that might be too hard. That said, I don't think... You know what? I don't think it would have mattered because most pieces of rice that are food are not as hard as PLA plastic. So we wouldn't have to worry about crushing any of the grains directly.
It's nice to know that if we had any issues with fire, that the plastic cement that you're using there says no fire.
Oh yeah, it is in fact inflammable.
Yeah, which is so that's very nice.
Yes. What a country.
Does it say no fire or does it say fire on?
No fire? No, comma, fire! Exclamation point. I have actually seen that used in a bumper sticker outside of the context of The Simpsons as well. It was on the back of a Jeep back when I was living in Nagaoka, and it had the no tractions ? No! Exclamation point. Tractions! Exclamation point. I don't know how often they got out to off-road, but they were at least confident in their abilities. Okay, I'm gonna have to find a way to clean some of this excess plastic and whatnot off these tweezers when I'm done. Probably sandpaper is the best method for that. Really, high grit situation. Okay, let's try building up these sides a bit more here, just to make sure
Like
it's even.
a little bit of like acetone or something would probably.
Oh yeah, that'd probably work out. That said, nobody in the Tilty house paints their nails, so I'll have to acquire some anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, wait, I've got some. I keep forgetting. I accidentally bought acetone when I was first buying some of my modeling paints. Because I thought it was necessary for all thinning and cleaning, and turns out, nope, just for what's that stuff called? Enamel-based paints. And I work mostly in acrylics. go. Looking good. Perhaps it was a mistake for me to not plan eating sushi tonight. Although now that I'm thinking about it, the off-gassing on this cement, hopefully I'm not going to start associating the smell of liquid cement with the sight of prawn sushi.
Oh yeah, that could be no good.
Actually, maybe we'll see if that occurs, and if it does, maybe I just won't be building the tuna model at all. I'm not the biggest fan of shrimp sushi. I mean, I enjoy good shrimp, but just
I enjoy shrimp, and I agree. It feels weird that you're like that the tail's there.
That's a good point, yeah.
Like it's, I don't know. Maybe you're supposed to eat the tail, but it feels weird to have like a chunk of sushi that you're like not supposed to eat.
For me, it's mainly the cooked aspect. Just.
But yes, tuna and salmon are sort of my go-tos usually. But
well, there you go. Those are the number 1 and number 2 most popular pieces of sushi in Japan and internationally.
I am a basic sushi person, I guess. I actually don't really like salmon that much, like cooked as a meal, but I quite like salmon sushi.
Well, you can thank the Norwegians for that then. Salmon is not traditionally a sushi or a traditionally Japanese sushi ingredient.
Right.
And it was only thanks to a Norwegian advertising campaign and awareness campaign that salmon became popularized in the late 90s, early 80s, or other way around.
But I tend to go for sashimi when I have the opportunity.
Oh
but
yeah.
I don't know. I personally, I'm sure I know there are sort of subtleties to it, but I don't know. I don't like. I feel like nigiri. I'm just buying a bunch of rice. Like what I wanted was the fish part.
I mean, I don't want to disparage all the local restaurants, but for the most part, in our area, the rice is not great, and it's a little bit over. Too much rice, too pressed rice. You're getting a better experience with the sashimi anyway.
Like you're saying with the particular, the hand, the technique for the pressing of it.
And you can build robots to do the pressing for you, but you're going to get a robotic. I don't want to say quality, but it's not going to be a handmade experience in terms of the softness. Very, very calibrated and repeatable. And that's that can be fine sushi too. If you're at a sushi go round, why can't I remember kaiten sushi? Oftentimes they'll pre-make the rice in the machines and just spit it out. Have people put the topping on. What I've eventually one of my favorite ways of eating that is the chirashi don, which is where you get the slices of sashimi on top of a bowl of sushi rice, which means you can control your levels of rice to fish.
Nice. Yeah. I'd off some tuna and salmon sashimi, and a bowl of rice with some nice sauce on it. Is used to be one of my sort of go-to things that I'd go for, but most of the places that I used to go are gone now, unfortunately. But
Unfortunate. Thankfully, local restaurant Uchida is back up in business. Doing
they're a good place.
Oh, they are. They are a fantastic place, but they're more. They're focused more on things other than sushi, but definitely focused on the local fresh ingredients, prepared lovingly and with care.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this many available, and you should line up early if you want to get in, and if you don't want it, well, don't show up.
I mean, it's interesting with the sort of, local fresh ingredients, of course, because what's local to Vancouver Island is going to be different from what's local to Japan. So, so you have to, by necessity, change your style
a little bit, yeah. Not nearly as much local burdock root as I'd like.
I do not know what that is.
It is a root.
Of a burdock, I would guess. I figured that part out.
I mean, if you want to know what the texture is like, imagine taking a pretty woody root and boiling it for a long time until it becomes slightly soft.
Mm.
And it's a very earthy flavor in it too.
But it's a sort of a traditional ingredient for.
Yeah. And you can find it pretty easily around town, but whether or not it's locally produced, I'm skeptical. I think the last time I saw it, I saw the word Mexico on there.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's always the issues of trying to find what you want and not knowing which language it's being sold under. A lot of the times, the sorts of vegetables that get used between different Asian cuisines, between Korea, China, and Japan, oftentimes they'll be sold under their Chinese names here in the supermarket.
Oh, interesting.
So if I'm looking for something that I haven't worked with before, and I don't know exactly what it looks like unprepared, I have a hard time getting at that. And then a lot of the times, what you'll get is in translations of these things or localizations of recipes, they'll give you the Japanese name for the vegetable, and then the Latin taxonomical name, which you very rarely see used in a grocery store. But it's only recently that I found out that the Chinese tong ho is chrysanthemum leaf.
Oh.
And that's, I was just about to dunk that in the...
I guess that would work, too.
Probably. But yeah, chrysanthemum is a great green if you're looking for something that goes well with soy sauce and other things. Slightly, kind of like a more substantial spinach.
Mm. I do like spinach.
If you'd like it with a stronger taste, a stronger tooth, and the occasional chrysanthemum bud embedded in it, can highly recommend.
My dad was to grow spinach and kale, all that kind of stuff. Rocher, rocket.
Having that right in the garden is very enviable. That's what I should do, is plant some arugula. There's a local pizza shop nearby called Standard Pizza. Don't be creepy. And one of my favorite pizzas to order from them is a mushroom pizza that is it's a white sauce, cheese. Last time I had it was with morel mushrooms, which was absolutely lovely.
Mm.
But then they also give you a small sandwich bag full of arugula with the intention that you are to toss it on the pizza before serving.
Oh.
Ideally with a little bit of time for the heat to let it wilt just a bit, but
That is a much better way of doing it than any pizzas that I've encountered that have some sort of leafy thing on them. Tend to get not in a good state by the time I'm like about to eat it.
yeah. It's a very McDonald's McBLT McDLT system. Yeah, where the hot stays hot and the cool stays cool. Jason Alexander dance.
I feel like standard pizza would not appreciate that comparison. But
That said, if McDonald's ever decides to bring back pizzas, they'll have to bring a stone wood-fired oven if they want to compete with the standard. Folks, that's I think gonna do it for today. Let me just take a second here to put the salmon on top, still in its sprue. Let's see how she looks. That's,
delectable.
almost a piece of sushi. I'm kind of upset at how good that looks
Yeah,
for being a piece of plastic.
the rice looks really natural.
Yeah. So definitely going to need to flatten it out a bit more as we add things on, because it's still a little bit roly-poly. And I think we can probably as well extend to the front a bit more. I don't know if I want to go all the way back here. I kind of would like to cover the hole, but I guess it'll be filled in a bit by the actual piece. And of course, if we're not going to paint this thing, the idea of trying to do seam deletion on this area is going to be fool's errand. But dang, this is a fun little kit. I'm glad we got a chance to play with this and put this together. And maybe we'll save the remainder of the rice for the next time we have a big ol' multi-person hobby night to do some work on together. But as I said, that's going to do it for this episode of Tinker, Tailor, Solder, Fry. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. A reminder that if you want to support the channel, you can do so all the time over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Again, thank you so much to everyone there. Once again, twitch.tv/loadingreadyrun, youtube.com/loadingreadyrun is a link to all of the other things we do. loadingreadyrun.com/live for our schedule and for other information about us. And that's it. As we say all the time, ever forward, learning out of spite. See you again in a fortnight, never in Fortnite. Good night.